Hi, welcome to Parish Radio Conversations. I'm your host, Rich Jarvis. This is my co-host, John Waterhouse. This show is only about prayer. Ernest Holmes, which we call spiritual mind treatment in this philosophy. You got it, John.
To have everybody with us today. We have something wonderful for you. I want to introduce you to one of the ministers in our movement, an amazing guy with extraordinary talents. We're going to have a great conversation. Now, what I want to tell you about Reverend Ken Wilcox is that he is an excellent teacher of the science of mind, an excellent orator. But the thing that absolutely blows me away is how at his center in St. Augustine, Florida, he took that community from being deeply in crisis financially and emotionally because of a Ponzi scheme that was played on them as a community, deeply in debt. He took that community, which I don't know a lot of ministers that would take a community under those circumstances. But this man has turned that community around to the point where they have assets that far exceed the money that they were in debt over when he took that pulpit. So we have an extraordinary person to share with this morning and to learn from this morning. So welcome, Reverend Ken Wilcox. Great to have you here.
Oh, John, it's wonderful being here with you. And Rich, it's wonderful meeting you. And yes, this is an exciting program. I'm excited to talk about prayer in St. Augustine a little bit.
So, my
The
dear
oldest
friend, would
city
you
in the
open
nation.
us? Yes.
Okay.
Would you open us
All
with
right.
prayer?
Well, of course, I'm always happy to do that. And so we just come together now in consciousness and we know something good for ourselves. We know something beneficial, something that is not going only to help us, but it's going to resonate out into so many people who are listening, to their friends and family, and to the world. And what we know is that there's one God, and that God is good. It is love. It is joy. It is happiness. It is radiating through us, for us, and with us. So here now in this special time, we just relax, we just let go, we open ourselves to the wisdom, the intelligence that's flowing through us, and we say yes to life, all the love and joy and health and prosperity. So we're going to have fun today, we're going to learn something, we're going to share something, and we and the whole world will benefit from our time together. This is my truth. I celebrate this wonderful right knowing, and I release this prayer into the mind of God to do its good and powerful, bold and dynamic work, returning to me multiplied abundantly. And together we say, and so it is.
So it is.
So it is. Well, I got to tell you, you are fabulous. I looked at his site, and let me give you the site for our people that are listening on audio only. CSL, and I'm going to spell it STAUGUSTINE.org, StAugustine.org.
Yes.
And he also has another site for himself, which is called Prayer with Ken. And that's spelled exactly the way it sounds, PRAYER with Ken.com. And I
Yes.
suggest you check out both the sites because I'll tell you, your St. Augustine site has all sorts of activities. I was like looking at it going, come to your church?
Yeah, we would love to have you. Yes, we have things going on every day of the week. Everything from meditation and motion, near-death studies group, bingo, qigong. So we really embrace being a full active participant in the community.
Yeah, there's
That's
neat stuff in
excellent.
there.
Yeah.
So,
How
Ken,
does
tell me what's happening in your life that's new. You did a little tease before we started the recording, and I want to hear about this.
Okay, so it started 25 years ago with a promise. I was with my beloved niece, and we toured the Jewish Museum of Prague. And there I wandered away and went into the special exhibit, and it was for Friedl Dicker-Brandeis. She was an art teacher in Prague during the Holocaust. And when Jewish kids were rounded up and they were first sent to an internment camp, she continued teaching art to those kids. She used scraps of paper and charcoal for them to produce art. Uh, Almost all of them perished in the Holocaust. After the war, a suitcase was found in a railroad station in Prague. No one knew where it came from. When they opened it up, it was full of this children's artwork, and they identified it as art she had helped produce in that internment camp. It's now on permanent exhibit in Prague. And so I use her a lot in my sermons because, here's all she had. All she had was charcoal and scraps of paper. And you can only imagine how overwhelmed she was with fear. Everything had been taken from her. She only had scraps, and she still was willing to teach to alleviate those kids of their fears. And in those moments when those kids were using that charcoal and paper to produce art, she had burst through every bond of hell human ignorance could ever impose upon anyone. She freed them, even if for seconds. There's no greater demonstration of of our power and a willingness to use our minds to create a better life. So I've used her for many times. This last time when I used her, I thought, because I made a promise to her when I went through that exhibit. I made a promise. I said, I will do whatever I can to promote your story, because I had never heard about it, and I'm a pretty good history student. So this past year, when I was again telling her story, I thought, well, okay, it's now time to belly up to the bar. And so I had a board member reach out to the museum in Prague and say, would you be willing to send us the traveling collection? Well, come to find out, they've used the traveling collection so much that it's no longer usable. And so they've told us, well, we'll send you the details so that you can print it out for yourself. And so we're waiting on them. Europeans take August off. So we're waiting on them in the fall to send us that so we can print it out. And then we can send it. Once we print it out, we use it here, we'll send it back to them. So her story, their story, can continue getting out to the world. We're still hoping and we're still believing it's possible. If it will be the most wondrous thing that's happened. And I will be very grateful and very honored if this can happen. And we're St. Augustine's the oldest city in the nation. We did have the first ship that came here, the Spanish. There were a couple of Jewish that had been forced to convert. So we have a long history of Jewish history here. St. Augustine was actually the place where more rabbis were arrested during the civil rights movement than anywhere else in the nation. So that's what I'm praying for now, and it will be a wondrous, wondrous day when it occurs.
Wow, what a wonderful story! Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to you, Rich.
Wow, that is prayer in action. I was going to say, how does prayer show up in your life? And then you've manifested that where they're actually sending you that stuff. Are there other things where prayer shows up in your life for yourself directly?
Well, yes, but my real focus on affirmative prayer is praying for others, because I think that really when we look at the ministry of Christ, we see that that's what he did most. He prayed for others. And here's a dirty little secret that no Christianity doesn't explain. The one time he prayed for himself in the Garden of Gethsemane, it did not work. And so I think our prayer is when we pray for others. And so how it became very powerful for me, and this is the Prayer with Ken ministry, is I had a prayer partner, dear prayer partner. I still have, she's in my life, and we record our affirmative prayers for each other. And so I have hundreds of them. I listen to them most nights. And so there's affirmative prayer is very powerful, but also if you have it recorded and you can listen to it, particularly when you're going to sleep, when you're waking up, this is a real way to sink into your consciousness. Wow. So that's what I'm doing now, is providing affirmative recorded prayers for people. But also for me, it's the praying for others, because when you pray for others, you can step out of your doubt. You can know for certainty. When you pray for yourself, there's always that inkling, especially when it's something big and important. There's an inkling of, do I really deserve this? Or, is this just wishful thinking? So I think the praying for others is how we step into our power. And let me tell you, you start praying for others and you see people doing really well, and you see goodness flowing in your life, you won't need so much. Kennedy had an interesting thing. He said, the more you get through affirmative prayer, the less you'll want. And I think ultimately, we start off, we teach where we're used to, pray for a parking space. Okay, fine. But ultimately, what you really want is that connection, that feeling. That's the water from the well. If you drink, you'll thirst no more. And soon you won't care about the parking space. Yes, it's nice to have, especially if you're taking a friend, to the hospital. It's nice to have, but it's that communion of knowing, that you're one with spirit, and you're on a mission. You're on a mission to raise up, to help. That's what Christ did. He went out and he helped. He tried to make the world a better place, and I think that's what affirmative prayer provides for us.
Wonderful.
That's beautiful. That's brilliant. Thank you for your clarity around that. And as Holmes said, that when we pray for others, the thing we're calling forth in them is being called forth in us. So you
Yes.
can't get away from it.
Well,
Okay.
that's the thing. People you come from, you've got an issue, and you'll have somebody come to you on a prayer on the exact same issue. So,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Exactly. How can that be anything but wonderful?
right, right, right,
So,
right.
in your life, I'm sure you've taught hundreds, if not thousands, of people how to do spiritual mind
Mhm.
treatment. In doing that, do you have any thoughts of any nuances of teaching style or ideas that you use that you think makes a big difference that no one would ever find in the curriculum?
It's
Anything come to
such
mind?
Yeah, well, the big thing is you got to get out of your way. And you have to become that observer. I have you always, you have people, because I have people do affirmative prayers at the service, and I have one or two of them that want to read their affirmative prayers. And it's kind of like that's okay, but that's the training wheels. You've got to be able to get on and get out of your own way and let spirit flow through you. And it's really miraculous that that happens for me because I'm such a control freak that most parts of my life that does not happen. I mean, so for me to be able to do it is a gift. And boy, what a wonderful gift, because you you know affirmative prayer, when you do it, you automatically feel better about yourself, about the world, about possibilities. And I do tell people that that's the first sign the thing has power. It's already had an effect. You're feeling better about yourself. um, so the biggest challenge is getting out of our way and worrying about it, thinking we've got to come up with the right words and stuff.
Thank you.
Now, a lot of us have different ways that we start our day. How do you prep for your day? How does Ken do this? Do you just, oh, great baker, and then just dance or something like that, or do you have some special formula that you do?
What he
well,
means is, what's your spiritual practice, Ken?
well,
No,
so I hear people all the time. There's something very popular right now where people are going to this Buddhist retreat for 9 days of yoga, not yoga, 9 days of meditation, and they're meditating for like 5 hours a day, and they do have a good breakthrough, but they also talk about just the pain of it. You're sitting on this pillow for 5 hours. I- you know. I came from a terribly dysfunctional family. I don't want any more pain in my life. And so I go with easy and joyful and loving, that which makes me feel better. So I know this is going to be a huge disappointment to your listeners, but my day starts up. I get a cup of coffee and I sit on the sofa, and I'm joined shortly by this little guy that I adopted 2 years ago. He's from the pound, Shaggy, and I adopted him because I thought he's so ugly. If I don't get him, nobody will. And he is the most amazing little guy ever. And so when I sit down with my cup of coffee, all of a sudden I see these two little paws in midair flying at me. And he's soon on his back with me rubbing his tummy. And he just melts into me. I mean, he's like a limp dish rag. And for those, and he does that for quite a while. For that moment, I think, the love I'm giving him is the love God is giving me as well. And so I don't get belly rubs, but uh, being able to give love and to see the comfort he has is really wonderful for me. And like I said, most of the time I've listened to a affirmative prayer from my prayer partner, and then I go through people that in my congregation. You always have people that need prayer, and so I make it a point during the day to say a quick prayer for them.
Very nice.
And
Very
more than that, I've gotten it really down to shorthand, is that I just take a moment and envision them living their best life. So with me, and I don't know where I picked this up. So when I go visit somebody in the hospital, and of course they want a prayer for healing, but I also encourage them, well, let's envision a life where you're living so large that the healing is already incorporated in the prayer. So yeah, we want to do a prayer for your leg to heal and you be out of the hospital, but okay, then let's do a prayer for you walking the streets of Paris and having the croissant and seeing the Eiffel Tower. And so because we want to inspire a greater life. And yeah, we want to be healed, but we want to be out there living our best lives.
There you
And to
go.
know it's possible. To know it's possible.
That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. Hey, the how do you adjust to your day if you have a challenge? I mean, boom, something happens and you're like, geez, what, why?
Well, that happens a lot. You can't run a ministry without getting bombarded by people who have needs. There's that, and actually, that's for me. That's not the hardest part of the job. Knowing that a friend has got a bad diagnosis or financial troubles. That I can handle. It's the little small complaints and a little I don't know, the little power struggles communities get in, that
Mm,
to me can become very, very wearing. I get very, very tired of that. So I have a couple of people that I know I can call that are always going to lift my spirit. Music, I can turn on some music. Some exercise, going for a walk is good, and then turning to some reading. So just be willing to take a break. One thing I've learned over the years is uh, in ministry, as a problem shows up, if I don't have an answer to it, then just let it be for a while. Harry Truman said that for every three problems you see coming down the road, two of them are going to run into the ditch before they get to you. And oftentimes, if you just don't give it attention, don't give it energy, it kind of can miraculously resolve itself. So,
I have never heard that quote from Truman.
I
So
haven't
it
ever.
goes, the buck stops here unless you go into the ditch before you get here.
yeah. He also said, if you want a friend in DC, go get a dog.
He did. I know that. That's great. So here's one for you.
Okay.
You obviously talked a lot about doing treatment and prayer work for others.
Mhm.
Have you ever in your career had someone come back to you, or maybe a number of people, and say your prayer didn't work? Has that ever
Yes.
happened to you? And if so, what do you do?
Yes, and it's I remember when I first got here, there was a woman here and she had lost her husband and it was devastating to her. And and her what she said to me is we did everything right and he still died. We did the affirmations and the prayer and he still died. And that's a tough thing. I think that's a challenge for science of mind, because one negativity or one criticism I would have against Kennedy Schultz is he really kind of his display was that his life was perfect, and that he had figured it all out, and that he was living just the perfect life. And if you weren't, it was because somehow you weren't smart enough to got what he taught. Well, I learned later from his partner, I got to be close with his partner, that no, he didn't have a perfect life. And I think it was kind of a misservice because, we teach that you can have anything, you can do anything, you be anything, but I think of affirmative prayer almost like a ballroom dance. We're dancing with consciousness, and we want to make sure we're going with the flow of it, because you can stand on the shore over there and you can do treatments all you want to keep the tide from coming in, but that tide is going to come in. And so we want to learn how we go with the flow of it. So another thing that in my life is I try, of course, if you're ill, your focus is on healing. But for me, I always say, if you don't have a fish in the boat, throw every hook you have in the water. And so you want to keep several areas of interest going. And then that's good also for praying for others, because we don't have all the answers. And there are times that the answer to our prayer is no. So in my life, I've had to step up and accept that and still have the faith to say, okay, then there's something else. I'm looking in the wrong direction. There's something else for me.
Excellent.
That's
Thank you.
that segues into my next question, which is evolving prayers. How have they changed over time? I mean, where did you come from? Did you just wake up and were born and said, you have this knowledge, which we all do in some sense, but
Right.
where did you come from and how did you get here? Short version.
All right. Well, I grew up in Macon, Georgia. My parents sent me to a fundamentalist Christian school, uh,
Praise the Lord.
and uh, uh, and I became a raging loudmouth atheist at a certain point of my life. Um, During the AIDS crisis, strangely enough, it's a weird thing. When all my generation of my friends were dying, uh, I felt to myself, the pain is so acute of this. It's so painful that there has to be a purpose. This could not just be accidental. This can't be this kind of pain. There has to be a plan, or there has to be purpose. And so I began exploring. And Kennedy said he went from east of weird to west of orthodox. Well, I did the same thing. I went all over, and none of it made much sense to me. I went to a congregational church in San Francisco, and that kind of came as close to anything. I ended up in Atlanta, and I had these two friends, and they just kept bugging me about going to hear this minister. And I kept telling them, I don't want to hear any damn minister. Finally, they wouldn't shut up. And so I went, and it was Kennedy Schultz. And I remember we went to brunch afterwards, and I couldn't stop talking about him. I just, and he said this was a teaching that would not insult your intelligence. And that really resonated with me. And I have found it to the best way to get through my life. This has been the best way for me to live with the most peace and joy, and to go. I was also at that time Kennedy described people who looked good but felt awful. I was vice president of a public relations firm. I was making tons of money. But boy, my life was I didn't have relationships. There was a lot wrong in my life. This teaching has brought me to a full life. You know, my one of the things my parents did for who knows, they really did, they needed me instead of a child, they needed a potted plant, but they got a child, and um, they um, they really convinced me that I was not only unlovable, that I was unlikable. And so for a long period of my life, I went through, and for a while I was a spokesperson in Washington for a congressman. And I lived an isolated and lonely life. And so now on Sunday, when I'm at the center, people are constantly coming up wanting to hug me, I'm very huggable, and so I'm hugging people, and I see them getting a support and love channeled from me. And I am amazed of that, because it's like, well, where did that come from? It had to come from spirit, because it did not come from any of my history. So I went from a place where there was no love to now a place where there's love overflowing. And it has to be miraculous. It has to be from source.
That is
That's
wonderful.
beautiful. That's great. So that kind of answers my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How many years have you been in ministry, Ken?
Gosh. So
More than you want to
almost,
remember right now?
yes, yes, almost 15 years in St.
Okay,
Augustine. And I was a
that's
couple of years
fantastic.
before that in Atlanta.
So in all of those years, um, what do you think the greatest gift is that comes to you out of ministry? Ministry is about service. It's about
Yeah,
giving to your community and to anyone that calls and asks you for support. That's the job. At the
right.
same time, you get stuff. Maybe
Yeah,
not even what you're looking for, but stuff shows
right.
up that feeds you. What comes to mind when I ask you about that?
Well, I love seeing our community. We have a very strong community. I've got a very strong board, and boy, they work so hard, and seeing how important the community is for them. So I love that aspect, and I love seeing them hugging and caring for one another, because boy, community is more important now than ever. We're desperate for community. I love that. I also like writing the talks. To see what wants to flow through this channel can be very miraculous. I really enjoy that. So
That's brilliant. Thank you.
yeah,
There's a question we always like to ask, and there's in our philosophy, the science of mind, we have a 5-step, a 7-step. Some people say there's a 3-step and a 1-step. What is it
12
that
step.
works?
I saw a 12 step once.
Well,
oh
that's
gosh,
that's Bill's stuff. We're not going to go down that path. So
yeah.
for those those of you know Bill, but the what works for you, and what do you find works in your life?
So I was taught on 7 steps, and Kennedy supposedly was a big, huge. I mean, he went to the barricades for 7 steps, and then now we're 5 steps. So this is what I tell people: you want to decide what it is that you want to have in your life. You want to start talking affirmatively in the present tense about that until you get a image in your consciousness, until you can see it in your consciousness. You keep adding flowery language or whatever until you get the emotion of the thing. So you want to speak, you want to get the visual imagery, and you want to get the emotion. Once you have all three of those things, you have created a prayer alive with spirit that's going from you and will return back to you if you can keep your cotton picking hands off of it. That's the challenge. And so you want to do the release too, because that is as big a challenge as any of it. So those are to me the three things: your words, your visual, your imagery that you create, and the emotion. If you have those three things, then you're on your way.
Okay,
Fabulous
Rich, is
work.
it time for our final questions?
Well, we are at the final question part. Yes. So I think there's one other question that I think we should ask, and then uh, how do you explain our philosophy to somebody who doesn't know anything about it? The elevator speech, if you will, and then I'll have John do the final question, if you could.
That's always dangerous. We're here in Florida, so I have told people on planes I'm a waiter. It's like, no, don't want to have that. To me, it's about living the ministry of Christ, praying affirmatively, being out in the world, doing the best you can, healing and blessing and enjoying life. Christ had a good time. The first miracle he did was turn water into wine. And in scripture it says wine, jars of wine, not one jar. And the poor guy was having to do it for his Jewish mom and her drunk friends. Can you imagine? So we want to have a good time. We want to enjoy life, and we want to, and so we find the biggest thing is we want to know that Spirit is for us and not trying to get its hands a hold of us so it can squash us like bugs in the dust. Because that was what I was raised up with, and it's a burden. Early on in my childhood, I looked at the people who were the religious people, and it was a burden to them. They weren't living happy lives. I am my prayer is that people that come to us can live a better life, a more joyful and loving life.
Well, in many
Prosperous.
faiths, suffering is a cornerstone of the experience. I
Yeah.
mean, if you ever want to be a saint in the Catholic Church, you have to suffer.
and
So
and so this is something we really have to get away from, and I really encourage this. We want to be generous, but we not we want to be generous, but generous in a joyful way. Saint Francis generous, give joyfully. If this involves suffering, you're not helping anybody.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, saints they're difficult people to live with. We don't need any more of them. We got plenty of them.
That's great. So here's your final question. We've had a fantastic conversation here. It's been very revealing, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. How would you, what would you like people watching this to experience? What should they walk away with?
That they can make huge changes in their lives, and they can
Nice.
live a full and wonderful life. Like I said, came from a very dark place, and now I'm in a place where I really witness the power of love and joy and optimism. And scripture says, make a joyful noise. Well, at CSL St. Augustine, we're making a joyful noise, and I think it's a blessing and a healing. And so that's what I would encourage everyone to do. We can lay our burdens down, and we don't have to stay in bondage to our fear and guilt and shame. We can live a joyful life, and Spirit is here encouraging us to do just that.
Brilliant. Thank you. And if anybody wants to find you, they go to cslstaugustine .org.
Org or prayerwithken.com.
prayerwithken.com. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing so many wonderful insights with us today. We really appreciate it. And would you be so kind as to pray us out of this time?
Well, certainly. So, this is what I know. I know there's one God, one mind, and one power. And that power is perfect love, it's divine intelligence. That power called me by name from stardust so I could walk the soul of St. Augustine. So here today, we've spent the last hour really enjoying ourselves, sharing our wisdom, gaining wisdom, and it is going to have a ripple effect of love and joy and compassion and kindness going from this podcast out to millions of homes and millions of hearts and minds. And from there, the ripple increases until it becomes a tidal wave, a tsunami of joy, of love, of friendship, of compassion, of kindness, changing the world, making the world a better place, a new heaven and a new earth. This is what we've come to witness. We are here to be awed awed with how much God loves us. And so here today, we turn loose of every bit of doubt, every bit of hesitation, every shackle of fear. We raise our eyes up to a new heaven and a new earth, and together we are shouting out, Emmanuel, Emmanuel, God with us. This is my truth. I celebrate, I rejoice in this right knowing, and I release this prayer into the mind of God to do its good and perfect, bold and dynamic work, returning to me multiplied abundantly. And together we say, and so it is.
So it is.
Well,
Thank
Ken,
you,
we
my
thank you.
friends. Thank you.
We thank you for being here and sharing your stories with us. John, hey, John, where can they find you at?
Well, they can find me right here every week. They can also find me at my other podcast, which is called Higher Reality on the Edge of Understanding. That's available on a dozen different sites. Just go for it. You'll find it. It's on actually you'll find it under Mystic Living Press, which is the organization that I do that through. And also my new book is out, Spirits Awakening, which is available on Amazon. And I'm going to be on tour doing some book signings and some talks at some different centers. And my website's not up yet, but when it is, all that'll be available there. We'll get to that soon.
Excellent.
Well, I'm Rich from Prayers Radio. We are Prayers Radio. Like, subscribe, or even support us at our website, which is prayersradio.com. And just remember, if you don't say a prayer, you ain't got a prayer. Everybody say bye.
Bye.
Your